Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you for taking your time and being here. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to Vartalap. Let's discuss, which is a series of mental health discussions initiated by the core counseling team of IIT Bombay. Uh, Today, we have a very important topic to discuss about. We are talking on how to manage the emotional crises that come up in our lives unexpectedly. And to talk about this topic, we have here with us Dr. Shishir Palsapure. He is an internationally renowned psychotherapist and a motivational trainer. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me on this forum.
Just a brief introduction of Dr. Shishir. If I start listing out his entire accomplishments, then I think the whole talk is not going to happen today. But let me just suffice by saying that he is a dynamic trainer, international motivational speaker, a life coach, a psychotherapist, a medical doctor, and a corporate trainer all rolled into one. He is also the founder director of Morphic Minds, which is an affiliate training institute for rational emotive and cognitive behavior therapy. The institute is affiliated with International Association of Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, right, sir?
That's right.
Yes. He's also trained and has a supervisory certification for rational emotive and cognitive behavior therapy. He also has developed and is successfully conducting a unique preventive emotional educational program for preschoolers, schoolers, and youth called CORE in Nagpur. His workshops and trainings are highly in demand and are very popular, and I can attest to their being entertaining and engaging and informative. So thank you so much, sir, for being here. It's a great pleasure to have you. Without wasting a lot of time, I'm just handing over the stage to you.
Thank you very much, Anisha. I hope that I'll be adding some value to the audience. However, I cannot see any audience, but I'm used to talking to a blank screen because of the lack of offline trainings. We have been used to talking into oblivion. So today we're going to learn how to deal with a crisis or how to deal with tough times in our life. Of course, we all know, but let us learn a few more techniques so that we can be a little more efficient in dealing with the crisis. Just to get me have some feedback from you. Is there any audience here? I can't see any.
So there is audience. We have muted and kind of made it their videos off. So they'll be
Okay,
interacting with me so that you're not disturbed. And in case if there are any
absolutely.
questions or anything, I'll be sharing it with you.
Okay, all right, okay. Now I just wanted to check if you can see my screen.
Yes, it's visible.
All right. Okay, now I can see the screen. Let me rearrange on the screen first. Okay, so today we're going to learn how to manage tough times. If you have not had tough times so far in your life, amazing. Let's prepare for the future. And if you have not had tough times in your life, you're pretty lucky. I would say we can still use these techniques for other people. So other people may be going through tough times that you might help them with. So let us first take a quick overview of what we're going to discuss today. One is understanding what is meant by a crisis, understanding a crisis, and then dealing with a crisis. If there is a crisis in your life, how to deal with it. We will also answer a few questions like why me, when to seek out assistance, whenever you're going through a tough time, like is it always that you should seek out for assistance or professional help? What is the point where you would like to seek assistance or assist someone to professional help? And then how to deal with extreme situations. Of course, this is such a huge topic, like dealing with adversities, dealing with crisis. Anisha when said that you have to take a presentation on dealing with a crisis, and I said, how many days do I have to teach. She said 45 minutes, forget days. So it's like now that's stressful for me. That's a crisis for me to compress everything into just 45 minutes because there's like so much to say about how to deal with a crisis. But I'll try to give justice as much as possible. Let us first quickly rate these crises on a 0 to 10 scale, everyone, right? Okay, now I would like to see some chats. However, I won't be able to see the responses, but Anisha would be able to voice them out for you. Your 5-year-old relationship comes to an end. How bad is it on a 0 to 10 scale? This is a crisis that you go through. How bad is it on a 0 to 10 scale? You're getting married.
6.
Now, 6. You're getting married, 6.
Eight, eight.
Hmm. Right. You fail at an annual
ഒറ്റയ്ക്കൊക്കെ എന്റെ
exam.
സ്വഭാവം മാറും എനിക്ക് തന്നെ അറിയില്ല.
Okay. You fail at an annual test or an exam. How bad would it be on a 0 to 10 scale?
7.
You could simply reply by text, so nobody has to speak. Your romantic partner does not reply to a message that shows 2 blue ticks for over 6 hours. Okay, this happens quite often that you send them a message on WhatsApp. All right. I would prefer everyone to be mute. Anisha, you could mute everyone. Just
So
let
6.
them
That is a
respond
6, sir.
on
Romantic
chat.
partner doesn't reply. That's a 6.
Okay, right. Uh, you lose 5 kg weight. How bad it would be. You
That would
lose
be
a loved
negative.
one.
-1.
For someone like me, losing 5 kg weight would be really bad because it's very hard for me to gain weight. You lose a loved one, how bad it would be on a 0 to 10 scale. You gain 5 kg weight. I'm definitely speeding up because I just want some responses from you.
7. Gaining weight 7. Losing loved one 9.
You lose 10,000 bucks.
6. 5.
6, 5. You're detained at an airport where, while taking an international flight, for having a legal case against you that you didn't know of. How bad it would be.
8. 7.
Hmm. Right. The point I'm trying to make is that all of these are adversities, and if you noticed the responses from everyone, the responses are exactly similar or are they different? Does
Mostly
everyone
similar.
rate the same situation equally badly or differently?
Differently.
Differently. Now, that is very important point here that everyone looks at the same situation differently, and the way they think about the situation is different, and therefore, whether they consider it as a crisis or a hassle or a very bad event, we don't know. So, the severity of the crisis is different for everyone, even though the situation is exactly the same. Why does this happen? Let us take a look at a situation. Imagine yourself in 2 different scenarios. Scenario one, you have lots of money with you. Then your mobile phone is fully charged. You had a meeting with the RTO officer in this area. On Friday, you partied with them. So you had a social meeting with them. So they are very good friends with you, the RTO manager, RTO officer. Then you have all the documents, your license and the car papers with you. And then you are stopped by traffic police. This is situation one, right? Where all these things are in place. And situation two, where your battery is dead, you don't have money, you don't have the car papers, you don't have a driving license, and you do not know any RTO officer for that matter, right? Where will you have more anxiety, scenario one or scenario two? In both the cases, you have been stopped by a traffic police or a cop. Where will you have more anxiety, one or two?
Situation 2.
And situation two. But I want to hear from you. they will raise hands and verbally speak about why is it different. The situation is exactly the same, but in one situation you will feel very anxious. However, in the other situation you won't. Why is this so? Why are our feelings different in very, very similar scenarios?
So you can, the participants can raise their hands and I'll unmute them. I've unmuted all of you.
Because level of preparation is different in both the cases.
Correct. Level of preparation is different in both the cases. That's a very good answer. I'd
So
like
there's
more
a
inputs.
response of fear of unknown.
Fear of unknown. Okay. Right.
There is less
So what's
control
going to
in the
happen? We
second
don't know.
scenario.
Uh-huh. Anything
There's
else?
less control in the second scenario.
Less control in the second situation, right? Very good. Anything else? Yes, we
Solutions
have
are
quite a few.
available to the problem in the second scenario.
In the first
Sorry, in the
scenario,
first
actually.
one.
Solutions are available in the first scenario. Very good. More?
If anybody
One
wants
of the
to help,
answers.
you can speak. Yeah.
One of the possibilities is that you have more resources to deal with the adversities, whatever may come. You have more resources to deal with the adversities, and therefore, the first scenario is less likely to be considered as a crisis. However, the second scenario is more likely to be considered as a crisis because there are poor resources. You don't have your mobile phone charged, you don't have your money, you don't have your license and the papers, and you do not know anyone who can get you out of the problem. Now, looking at this, it gives us a very important clue about crisis. The risk of getting caught or being stopped by a cop is more or less similar for all of us, right? Unless we are actually driving rashly or we jump the signal, we have a habit. So the risk is higher for people who break rules. But assuming that the risk is exactly similar, but there are people who are more vulnerable, feeling anxious when they are caught. Right. Now, this talks about the risk is the actual probability of things going wrong, and the vulnerability is your personal deficit that makes you more likely to get into a crisis. Now, because everyone has different levels of resources within them, some people are more vulnerable to a crisis, and some people are less vulnerable to a crisis, which means that even if the same adversity happens with, let's say, 100 people, not all of them would consider this as a crisis. This is a very important learning because we cannot reduce the risk many times. However, we can reduce our vulnerability to what adversity can do to us, right? So let's understand what is a crisis. Crisis is a highly stressful situation with potential for very negative outcomes. So any situation, any adversity that has a potential for a very negative outcome is considered to be a crisis. A crisis is usually short term and creates an intense pressure for quick resolution. So it's an acute situation where suddenly you get into an adversity and it creates an intense pressure for quick resolution. The resolution needs to be quick. So the time factor is very, very important. It's not something that's going on for many, many years. For example, I have arthritis and I have let's say back pain and I can't get out of my bed. Now this is not a crisis. However, I am lifting weights at the gym, and then I suddenly have a huge, uh, I would say, muscle pull or a muscle tear, and then I have to be hospitalized. Now this could be considered as a crisis because it is sudden, it is short term, and it creates an intense pressure for quick resolution. Remember that the quick resolution also makes it more, I would say, potentially adverse because the resources, even if they are available, they uh, um, liquefying these resources or making them available can be tricky. Say, for instance, you miss an international flight. Now, this is a crisis because you suddenly have to arrange for money to book another ticket. Now, this can become a problem because the next flight is in, let's say, 2 hours, and you have to check in and you have to arrange for a new ticket and so on. You may not have immediately money. Although the resources are available, like you may ask your friends, your relatives, or you may, withdraw money from your bank, but they may not be readily available. So having resources is one thing, and being the resources being available at the moment is another thing. So when we talk about dealing with a crisis or getting us less vulnerable to a crisis, it is not just important to build resources, but also build resources that can be quickly used. Talking about crisis survival skills, I'm talking very much in general. I'm not talking about a specific event or a specific crisis. Any adversity can be called as a crisis, which requires a quick resolution. And we all have such crisis. We have crisis in our relationships, at our work, at studies, or maybe personal health or finances, or it could be a mixture of all these things. Like things could be going wrong in all the places, and then suddenly, like a last straw on the camel's back, there is another crisis, and that might push us into a situation which is very, very challenging. So let us look at some management skills or crisis survival skills. The first and foremost survival skill in a crisis is managing your feelings. The first thing we always, always, always recommend is emotional skills. Manage your emotions. I'm going to talk a little more on these emotions, how to manage your emotions. Excuse me. Second is a very specific skill, what we call as a stop skill. It's a emotive, it's a behavioral and a cognitive skill, in the sense that you act differently and you think differently in that particular skill. Then there is a cost benefit analysis of your actions. The last one is building resilience and building resources. So resilience is an internal resource where you get prepared for more and more adversities. However, you do not respond in a negative way. Building resources can definitely reduce the impact of crisis on you. So let's talk about managing extreme emotions. Now, we all have negative emotions, but mind it, not all negative emotions are problematic. For example, let's say I have an exam coming up tomorrow and I'm completely okay with it. I'm binge watching Netflix, there is a new show, and it's like I'm not stressed at all about the exam. So I stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning. I have my exam at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm completely stress free. I don't have any negative emotions about the exam. Do you think this is going to be helpful to me? That not having a negative emotion about the exams, I'm completely positive I'm gonna score very good marks. I don't Nothing is gonna go wrong. Everything will be all right. So I'm having all kinds of positive thoughts because I listened to a motivational speaker just in the evening, and they said, like, fill your mind with all positive thoughts. So I filled them. Nothing is gonna go wrong. I am going to be successful. I am the king of the universe, and so on. So not having a negative feeling actually gets me into a crisis, because next morning I wake up at 9 o'clock, and then I suddenly realize that, oh my God, I have not studied at all for the exam. And then I might actually get into a bad situation. So, mind it, not all negative emotions are unhelpful. In fact, there are two sets of negative emotions. We say one is an unhealthy negative emotion, and another is a healthy negative emotion set. So, extreme emotions can actually freeze your mind when you have very extreme emotional upset. You may not think clearly. You may take an impulsive action. You may also do things that are unhelpful in the longer run, and your problem solving ability, your decision making ability, all go down with extreme emotional upset. So often give this example. Let us say that you might have fried pakoras, or let's say baked a cake, say for instance. Would you bake the cake or fry the pakoras at a very high flame or a high temperature at the oven, or a very, very low temperature in the oven, or a low flame? The answer would be no. You would probably bake it and fry it at medium temperature. So you always, take a look at how hot the oil is. Like, probably dip your hand into the oil and see how hot it is. And if it's very hot, then decrease the flame. And if you think that it's pretty cold, then you're gonna increase the flame. So you know how to regulate the temperature of the oil. In a similar way, when you have emotions, let us say anger, if it is extreme, it's more than what is sufficient, it might do the damage to the relationship or the problem. And if it is like too low, not even sufficient, then it may cause a problem as well. Let's say that my son breaks an iPad, and it's like, beta, iPad should be used with care, no problem. We'll go to the store and get another iPad now, and we'll get an iPad Pro Max, whatever it is. I was very angry at my son. Do you really think this anger was even sufficient to pass on a message? No, it wasn't. So, an emotion, negative emotion, which is not even sufficient, could be problematic. An emotion which is really extreme. So, I break his bones so that next time he remembers not to break the iPad. Break the bones, but not the iPad. Now, this is more than what was sufficient. So we all know a range that is necessary and sufficient, and only the person who is going through that emotion is the right person to judge how much emotional upset is necessary and sufficient to deal with this situation. And that's what is meant by healthy and unhealthy negative emotion. For me, this amount of anger could be probably unhealthy, and for the person who is going through it, they know that this amount of anger was necessary. So we talk about managing extreme negative emotions. One negative emotion that we want to talk about is depression, which is, hold on a sec. Saran, could you please get my laptop charger? Depression is a negative emotion we often experience, and we experience depression as a feeling. I'm not talking about clinical depression. In depression, we have a negative view of self. I am bad, I am unlovable, I am incompetent, I am good for nothing. So, a negative view of self, I'm worthless. And then a negative of future. For instance, things are not going to turn in my favor. Everything is going to be bad in future. This is not going to improve ever. So hopelessness is an indicator of a negative view of future and negative interpretation of events. For example, if my friend does not respond to my message, then I automatically I interpret this as negatively, as that the friend is going to probably block me now. I'm going to be lonely for the rest of my life. Or let us say if it is my spouse, then my marriage is going to fail now, or completely I'll be uh, I'll be left alone, and so on. So negative interpretation of events. Remember, ice cream may come in 32 flavors, but depression comes only in three flavors, which is a negative view of self, negative view of future, and a negative interpretation of events. Sometimes it's a combination of all these three scoops. So, like, you have a negative view of self, future, and the world around you. So you can feel sad but not depressed. For instance, you may feel bad about what has happened or what is happening without interpreting yourself or the world or the future as negative. Now, this is one important skill that we could learn, is to switch um, uh, from feeling depressed to feeling sad but not depressed. Many times when we talk to our friends, they say like, "Hey, it's okay that this happened." For example, it's okay that your relationship, ended. There is always a good side to it. Sometimes, there is no good side to a situation. There is no golden lining. There's no silver lining to a cloud. The cloud is black and completely black through and through. So there may not be a positive side to a situation. So the thoughts that everything happens for a good reason may not necessarily be true in every situation. However, we have a choice to feel sad but not depressed in the same situation when it happens. Another feeling that we commonly experience is anxiety. We can feel concerned instead of feeling anxious about an adversity that's going to happen in future. So when people say that, just don't worry, everything will be all right, this does not work. There is a solid reason why such statements bounce off the head. There's something called as what an information processing model. And if the reality is adverse and you're trying to to compensate the negative thoughts with positive thoughts that everything is going to be all right when the evidence is against it, um, your brain is going to automatically reject those positive statements and positive affirmations. So remember, positive affirmations may be unhelpful because deep down inside you know that everything is not going to be all right, right? So having realistic affirmations is slightly more helpful than having positive affirmations, which is feeling concerned instead of anxious. So anxiety, the script of anxiety would be, oh my God, it would be terrible. It would be horrible if this happens. It's definitely going to be completely bad. However, concern would have a very different script, is that things may go wrong, and if they do, it would be bad, but definitely not the end of the world. And let me see what I can do about it. So you can see that there is a orientation towards action, how to prevent it from happening. Quite a few people of us feel guilty instead of feeling, and we assume guilt is a very tricky emotion. We assume that feeling guilty is necessary for us to prevent the same behavior from happening again. But check reality. How many times have you felt guilty about using the phone in the morning, or probably, binge watching Netflix? How many of you have felt guilty about eating something you did not do, you shouldn't have, or probably felt guilty about not going to the gym? And probably, about drinking a lot of alcohol. How many of you have felt guilty but still done the same thing over and over again? If guilt was really helpful, then you should have stopped doing these things over and over again. And that's a problem with guilt, is that it gives us pain, but it does not give us a skill how to do things differently next time. So guilt does actually prevent for some time maybe, but it does not give you a skill to deal with the same situation again. However, if you feel responsible but not guilty in a situation like this, next time it is likely that you may also learn how to deal with the situation better next time, how to act differently next time, what is going wrong, why are you behaving the same way over and over again. So examining things and learning how to act differently. Now, that's possible with feeling responsible and not guilty. Responsible means I own up my behavior, number one. I am human to act this way. It is not okay to act this way. And I commit myself to not act this way next time. So I'm not saying that, under the umbrella of you're human, you continue to do the same thing. However, you commit yourself to stop doing it and learn a new skill how to manage your behavior at the choice point. Sometimes we also have a deep sense of guilt when somebody leaves us, and um, I think this has happened very recently with you, that somebody passed away, and you may have a survivor's guilt that I wish I could have done something. I got the signals, but I didn't do something. If only I could have done things in time, things would have been different, or the person could have survived. You know, and such feelings are extremely common. Uh, I deal with such things every day, almost every day. It's like we have lots of people who are at very high risk, and then this is a professional hazard for us that people die, and we have been seeing them for many months, sometimes a year, that they leave us, and we are their primary professional caregivers. So there is a huge responsibility in our shoulders, and also the ability to do things, that the ability to prevent someone from dying. And then we are skilled, we are trained, we are paid for that, and then still we sometimes we cannot prevent people from harming ourselves. So we do go through this, and we definitely feel very bad. However, we are trained to feel responsible but not guilty in the same situation. And it does not mean that we feel nothing about it. It's not, we don't feel shameless about it. We don't feel careless about it. We feel very responsible but not guilty about it. However, one of the ways to get over guilt is, does anyone want to learn how to deal with guilt? I have a quick exercise. If I get 5 responses, then I'm going to share that exercise with you. Do we have five raised hands?
Yes, we already have more than
Oh,
five.
wonderful. Okay, great. So, how to deal with guilt and switch to responsibility? The script of guilt is I absolutely shouldn't have done this, and I am a bad person. Whatever you want to call yourself, whatever makes you happy, you may call yourself anything that where you feel guilty. And responsibility is I'm human and I commit myself not to doing this again. But I'm not a bad person for doing so. So draw a pie chart and divide it into like 10 different sections. And each pie is a representative of one factor. Now, what do you feel guilty about? What do you feel guilty about? So definitely it's an event that has happened outside you, or it's a behavior you have done yourself, right? It could be an act of omission that you did not do something in time, or it's an act of commission that you did something that you would rather not have done. Or there is an external event that happened. For instance, your son failed at an exam, or your loved one met with an accident, or so on, and you might feel guilty about it. So in these three different contexts, just figure out one specific situation where you felt very, very guilty, and then next time onwards you want to feel responsible but not guilty about it, right? So in these pies, I want you to write down quickly, or just imagine if you don't have a pen and paper, that's completely fine. One factor is that I did not do things in time, or I did something wrong. This is one factor, right? That contributed to that event happening. Write down other factors that contributed to the event. For example, if it was an accident, then it could be, the person was driving with a high speed, the person was drunk, or the truck that was coming. I remember one man whose son met with an accident, and he was disabled after the accident, and the father was so guilty for letting the son go on the car in the car, and then the son was driving, and I was seeing this father for the first time, and he had been through five different therapists before, and everyone said that it's okay what has happened now, just go ahead with future, but that did not help him. So he want, and everyone says like leave the guilt, don't feel anything about it, but that didn't work. So this was an example that we made a pie chart that you gave him permission, and that was one part that you played, and there were other factors that we brought in, which is there was fog in Delhi at that time. Like the sun was driving at 7 o'clock in the morning. There was fog, and he was drunk. The other truck driver, he did not see him, and so on. So we figured out there were multiple factors, and also the fact that the car did not have an airbag. So there were so many factors that contributed to the son getting disabled, and all these adversities were there at the same time. So we looked at the pie chart again, that how much is your contribution to the adversity? And the father realized that he does have a contribution to the adversity. However, there were other factors too. The moment he also focused on other factors, not to dismiss his own role, but he also looked at other factors in a pie chart, he got an accurate sense of how responsible was he for the accident. So initially, many people said that you are not responsible for the accident. So it was a black and white, whether you are responsible for the accident and you're not responsible for the accident. And no amount of convincing that you are not responsible for the accident was helping him. However, an accurate estimation of how much was he responsible for the accident made a lot of sense to him. And then he could feel responsible but not guilty in the same situation. I often give this example that we have a sense of responsibility towards other people, and sometimes guilt may seem to be productive, but it is not. So I give this example. Let's imagine that your guilt, um, you want to work on your guilt and feel responsible instead. Your sense of responsibility is a balloon with 100 units of air. Now, the sense of responsibility is 100, This is necessary and sufficient to get the job done. However, if you inflate the balloon with more air, let us say it's 110 now, how would you behave? Let's say there is a waiter who wants to serve food to the customers, and they have 100 units of air in their balloon in terms of sense of responsibility. So the waiter would probably properly take order, repeat the order, check the order, then place the order at the kitchen, and then bring the food as fast as possible and taking care not to spill it over. So if we inflate this balloon, imagine like a cartoon film that you simply inflate this balloon, and the sense of responsibility is much more than what is required and sufficient. Now the waiter would be hyper vigilant. He might be actually checking it over and over and over again. Ma'am, did I take your order well? Sir, is it what you had ordered? And then while going to the kitchen also, he would probably check it three, four times. And then, he might become so anxious while serving them that, oh, I must not trip, I must not fall down, and I must not spill the soup over the customer. So he would be preoccupied with adversities. He might be hyper vigilant. This is what happens when we have what we call as inflated sense of responsibility. We get the job done, but with an additional burden of feeling guilty and anxious. And if we deflate this balloon, so let's say that the air is now 90, the person might actually act very carelessly. So remember that we all can shift between 95 to 105. We cannot always stay on 100, especially if the situation is slightly high stake, then we might shift to 105. But just watch your sense of responsibility. If you are feeling guilty, it's highly likely that you have what we call as inflated sense of responsibility. So do not go to 90, but just try to stay at 100. Ask yourself how much sense of responsibility would be necessary and sufficient to deal with the situation. Anger is another feeling that we experience when we are in a crisis. Something goes wrong, and then you get very angry. There was a time when psychologists used to target anger and try to uproot the anger, but this is not possible. So we said that we could switch from unhealthy anger to healthy anger. Now, there are many ways in which we could switch from unhealthy anger to healthy anger. However, there is very little time today. I won't be able to finish all this as in time. But I just want to highlight one difference between unhealthy and healthy anger. Unhealthy anger is impulsive, and healthy anger is non impulsive. Healthy anger is helpful in the longer run. However, unhealthy anger is not. So, the first skill we learned about managing a crisis is managing your emotions, the emotional skill. And then second one is the stop skill, stop skill. Now this is specifically for self harm, where you first stop, which is whatever harm you're doing to yourself. It could be an addictive behavior, like you're drinking a lot of alcohol or taking drugs, or probably harming yourself in a suicidal way. First thing is to stop. Then take a look at what has happened, and then O is for what is O for? O is for looking at the situation from a different angle, and then P is preparing yourself to act differently next time. So it is a set of skills where you first stop, take a look at things, think differently about the situation, and prepare yourself to react differently in the same situation again. So in short, a stop skill helps you do things in a non-impulsive way. So whenever we are in a crisis, we might want to do things impulsively, and many times impulsive decisions, impulsive behaviors are unhelpful. Therefore, stopping and taking a look at what has happened and objectively looking at things and then thinking differently about the situation helps. A cost benefit analysis is of your own behavior. Like if I do this right now, this definitely would be an advantage. But what could be the long term advantages and disadvantages of doing things in this way and not doing things in this way is one way to deal with a crisis. Building resilience. Resilience is something that I have always learned from cactus. Now I have a cactus in my room, and I often give this example of cactus, that cactus has adapted itself to adversities over millions of years. So the cactus teaches us resilience, that in spite of an adversity, I can still bloom, I can survive. Now, how can you build resilience is by repeatedly going through a situation that is helpful, however, it is distressing. So the more you avoid distress, the shorter your comfort zone becomes, and then your resilience goes down. As I mentioned in the example where a traffic cop holds you, or probably interrogates you, if you had more resources, the ability to deal with crisis would go up, right? So what are these resources? These are internal resources like emotional management skills. This could be physical resources, like you may have good friends. How many 3 a.m. friends do you have? Like you call them up and they are going to be there for you. How many of them do you have? Then there could be financial resources. You need to have a buffer money. You need to have physical health resources. Like if your health is good, I remember that I was in a crisis. I was about to miss a flight, and then I was so anxious that I'm going to miss the flight because it was the 52 gate number 52, which is the end of the airport. And I had to run, and I had a bag with me to run with. Now, my physical health was low at that time, and I knew that I won't be able to run. Now, I had more anxiety with this. But if my physical health was good, I would probably not consider it as a crisis, which now I can run. I can run for a kilometer without and with a bag, and I'll not consider it as a crisis. So physical health makes a lot of difference. You need to have your academic health, your professional health in place, and interpersonal health, of course, like not just friends, but also romantic, non-romantic relationships. Do you have them good? And some people also look at other resources like your spiritual orientation, your moral values, and so on. So these could be extremely helpful resources. If you are high on resources, your vulnerability is low, the risk remains the same, the risk of a bad thing happening to you remains the same, more or less, but your vulnerability goes down because you have lots of resources with you. Common unhelpful behaviors people do in a crisis are like, we all are guilty of doing this. I would want you to be responsible, but not guilty. Avoidance. We may avoid the situation over and over and over again. There may be risk taking. Sometimes, we take risks of our physical health and safety. A lot of people use substances now. This is extremely common. Substances ranging from marijuana to MD and other higher drugs, alcohol, and so on. There could be behavioral addictions. Now, the substance use addictions are different from behavioral addictions. Behavioral addictions are anything that you do repetitively that does not involve a substance. So behavioral addictions could be, continuously checking mobile phone, checking your WhatsApp very, very often, checking your Instagram a lot of times, binge watching, emotional eating or not unplanned eating, or it could be compulsive shopping. There could be behavioral addictions. There could be self-neglect. Self-neglect as simple as not taking a bath, skipping meals, to self-neglect of, not taking medication, not taking a bath for days together, and just harming your own interests in the longer run, taking wrong career decisions, taking wrong relationship decisions. This is also self-neglect. And then deliberate self-harm. The self-harm could be of two types, as we say. Non-suicidal self-harm, where you harm yourself only or probably inflict pain on yourself because the pain is in your control. So you get a sense of control and relief. And there could be suicidal self-harm, where the intent is actually to kill yourself. So these are unhelpful behaviors that many people do in case of a crisis. Now, these behaviors do serve a purpose. They serve a purpose. Avoidance, risk taking, substance use, behavioral addictions, all serve a purpose of reducing the additional distress that they have. However, self neglect and self harm come from other beliefs about themselves, that they are worthless and they do not deserve to be cared for. Now, this is extremely important while helping people with self neglect and self harm, uh, to look at their self image. How do they view themselves as? Now, this can be repaired. Many times there are questions like, why me? Why is this happening with me? Believe me, it's not only you. The world is ruled by the law of probability. It's not the law of attraction. It's law of probability. The probability can go up and go down with your efforts. You may increase the probability of something. You may decrease the probability of something in adversity, say for instance, but you can never make the chance zero of anything bad happening to you. Sometimes bad things happen to sometimes bad things happen to people, um, and there are quite a few things that are uncertain. So we know a lot about self-harm, but at the same time, we don't know a lot about why people do things. And a lot of self-harm can be prevented. A lot of self-harm can be reduced to what we call as non-suicidal self-harm. And I think we can do a lot when it comes to helping people manage their crisis. If people had better crisis management skills, they would not engage in not just extreme behaviors that we talked about, but the routine behaviors that we spoke about. A lot can be done, right? Um, when to seek assistance? A very clear answer is that when you are done with feeling better and now you want to get better. Now, what is the difference between feeling better and getting better? Feeling better makes you feel better, maybe by avoiding, maybe by taking a substance, or just by venting out your feelings, or probably punching a bag. You might feel good after doing this. But getting better involves responding more adaptively next time the same situation happens, or there is a memory of the same situation. So getting better means you are responding in a way which is more helpful next time. And feeling better is you respond the same way every time the same situation happens, and you engage in the same unhelpful behavior every single time. So when you have decided to get better, not just feel better, seek assistance, professional assistance, you will definitely be happy that you did. So, extreme situations, I'm just going to close in a couple of minutes. Anyway, we are over the time. Extreme situations, what do we do in extreme situations? There's a simple protocol: manage your emotions well. There is a possibility of complete resolution of the problem. Now, you may be able to resolve the problem completely. If so, do so. And sometimes you realize that the problem cannot be completely resolved, but it can be partially resolved. So gather all the resources that you need to resolve the problem partially. Then sometimes the problem cannot be resolved at all, but you can definitely limit the damage it's causing you, right? For instance, let's say social media abuse. You may limit the damage, like you may not catch the person who is abusing. However, you can limit the damage to you by disabling comments, or probably disabling being tagged, and so on. So you can do damage control. However, you cannot solve the problem. So there is a damage control that you can do. And sometimes even damage control cannot be done. Like things are bad. Things are bad. And then you have to put up with the problem. Now, putting up with the problem without liking it does not mean that you have submitted to the problem. You have decided to put up with the problem, and two choices: with extreme emotional upset or with less emotional upset. You have to live with the problem. Say, for instance, I wanted 7 feet height and I'm only 6 feet tall. I have decided to put up with the problem. I can't do anything about it. This is a problem. I can't do anything about it. I can be miserable about it. I can also be only sad, disappointed, but not miserable about it. So take for example any situation. It could be a physical health, that I might develop cancer tomorrow, I might have HIV tomorrow. I have a choice to feel devastated about it. I also have a choice to feel sad, disappointed, but not devastated by it. So putting up with a problem, something that cannot be solved, is something I would strongly recommend if the problem cannot be solved. Nobody can take away your right to act rationally in any situation. You may at least feel differently, feel rationally in any situation if your behavior is restricted. So nobody can take away that choice. Remember, responding, reacting to any situation is your choice, your personal choice. However, the situation may not be in your control, but you can always, always, always react in a more adaptive way to every situation. With this, I want to thank you, all of you, for not falling asleep at 3 o'clock, which is the chai time for everyone. And if you want to get in touch, this is my website, and also an Instagram handle, a few posts, but I try to keep posting some rational but not just positive posts. All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Palsapure. So I'm leaving the forum open. The students can ask questions. They can chat. They can send the questions to me on chat. So we already have a few questions. So
Excellent.
the first question is from Divyansh. So I'm just going to concise it, and basically what he's asking is that when you have situations in life which are continuous, for example, you're lonely and don't have friends, or there is something bad that is happening in your family, and you're very sensitive to it, and you let it down, and even when you try to bring change, you're not able to bring a change, and then you feel guilty. So how do you deal with it?
First of all, being sensitive is not a problem. Many people think that being sensitive is a problem. The opposite of being sensitive would be insensitive. And quite a few people think that either you can be sensitive and emotional and you can be or you can be practical. No, I think you can be sensitive, emotional, and practical at the same time, right? So I don't think sensitivity is a problem. You can be what we call as oversensitive in the sense that you have very very disturbed negative feelings about what is happening in the life. Like, you remember one thing: when people do not behave the way you want in your family, you can influence people, but you cannot control them. You cannot control them. So try to influence people the way you want, with the deep acceptance that I cannot control another person's behavior. Remember that people who might be behaving in ways that you don't like could be because of many reasons. That could be because of their values, that could be a psychological disorder, or because that behavior helps them in some way. So we do not know why the other person is behaving the way they do. However, you can influence them but cannot control them. So I do not know what the problem is, but I think this is what I can respond the best without knowing the problem.
So there's a follow-up question by Sanjeet. He says that what if problems are very real and you know that the triggers will cause anxiety and they will keep repeating routinely? How do you manage that?
Excellent. So the triggers can trigger concern but not anxiety. So when we call, there is two types of worry. One is productive worry, another is unproductive worry. In productive worry, you aim at minimizing the problem, in the sense that minimizing the chances that the problem will happen again. How to deal with the adversity, worst case scenario, it happens again. So this is the way you can feel concerned but not anxious about the situation, which reduces the chances of the same thing happening again. So the adversity in future could be partially in control or not in control at all. So my advice would be, learn how to be concerned but not anxious about it.
So there's another question. In case of extreme emotions, how much time can it take to learn to manage these emotions? And is there a way to do it quickly?
Ah, I wish there was a way to do it quickly. Now, this is a very tough question because everyone can learn to manage their emotions differently, for sure, right? Now, a lot depends on the severity of the problem. Like, what emotions do you want to manage well? Now, some emotions are very easy to manage than others. For instance, anxiety and depression, they are very distressing feelings. So people work on these emotions faster than anger, a feeling like anger, which is distressing, but it also has advantages. So people think that, I don't want to work on anger because it gives me the results. So there are so many factors, like there could be underlying disorders like depression and anxiety could be also a disorder. There could be personality disorders. I would suggest one thing. We could do a mass testing of all the people in IIT Bombay, and that would give them a screening of, if there are any issues that they would like to work on, and that would give them some indicators, and that would be helpful. So my point is, how long does it take to manage emotions well? Depends on many factors, including the personality factors and psychological disorders. So if you have them, it might take longer. But instead of saying that it will take longer or shorter, I would say the more you practice, the faster you can manage your emotions well. So always associate with people who are generally very good at managing feelings. So you definitely know non-impulsive people, someone who is wise, who stays chill during crisis. So associate with such people rather than people who get hyper very quickly, who are very impulsive, who get very tense very quickly. Not that throw them out of your life, but associate with more and more people who have very good emotional regulation skills. You will model it much faster.
So there's a basic question. Why do we experience unhealthy emotions like anxiety? What's the use?
Excellent, excellent. Because the brain has two operating systems. One is what we call as a rational operating system, and another is irrational operating system, right? And because the brain has both of them, we are capable of having healthy emotions. We are also capable of having unhealthy emotions. This is one reason the operating system is the way we think. We can think rationally and irrationally at the same time. Second, that unhealthy feelings serve a purpose. They have been helpful some or the other time. Imagine that you had lots of anxiety in 12th, and then, because of that anxiety, you probably studied a lot, and then, you dismissed everything else, all entertainment, and you got good marks, and now you are in IIT. So you might start believing that anxiety has helped me. So we maintain that emotion. Remember the last time you got angry at someone and then never messed with you again. So unhealthy negative emotions have advantages, and therefore people don't want to leave them, and therefore they practice them over and over again without realizing that there is a healthy negative emotion set also, and another one is like complete indifference, like no feeling at all. So there are many reasons having multiple operating systems in the head and the negative emotions working for you. These are primary two reasons why we have unhealthy negative emotions.
Thank you, sir. The questions keep coming in, but I'm really sorry.
I
I
love
will
to.
have to close the chat.
Unless there is a restriction, I would be happy to answer them.
So there's a time restriction, unfortunately.
Okay.
Webex will automatically log us out. So,
Okay.
uh,
Great.
but I do encourage the students, if you have any questions, follow-up questions from the SWC or from Dr. Shishir, he has shared his chat. You can also drop a mail to office.swc at iitb.ac.in. Sir is also available on Instagram, and you can reach out to Sir directly as well.
I have
So
given my email ID as well in the
yes, sir.
chat box, so you might want to share that with people. You may be completely anonymous, that's also fine. I'm very bad at remembering names anyway, so it's unlikely that I would use the information against anyone.
So I have shared Sir's email address with everybody. So I would really like to thank you, sir, for being here for such an entertaining, such an informative talk. We loved the guilt exercise that you did with us. I mean, it was very nice.
Thank you.
There were a few concepts which were completely different from what we generally believe in, like the concept of healthy negative emotion, or having a positive outlook versus a realistic outlook. And I think something that I'm going to take back is the difference between feeling better and getting better. So that kind of is a highlight for me. So thank you so much, sir. I also would like to thank the audience for staying back with us, for making sure that this is such an interesting talk. Sir had talked about resilience, building resilience. So the core counseling team has a YouTube channel. We have put up a video on building resilience over there. Do go, do have a look at it. If you have any questions, queries, like I said, you can mail it to office.swc @iitb.ac.in. If any of the IITB students want to take an appointment, they can also go to the SWC website and click on the appointment link. Thank you so much, sir. I hope we get to see you once again.
I really want to congratulate Nisha, you and the SWC team for holding such an important topic for the students. It deeply shows, when I was interacting with you, it showed a deep concern for all the students, and that is something that is missing in today's world, a deep concern for others. I think we all can benefit with this. And I'm envious of all the IITB students. I wish I was there. All
So
right.
let the
Okay.
offline start. We're going to get you back into the
Absolutely.
campus.
No, I wish I was studying in IITB one day. I lived there with my brother who was doing MTech. So I know the campus. I know the Powai Lake and all the amazing campus. So I always wish that I studied there. But anyway, I'll come back.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, everybody. Wishing you a great
Bye.
day.
Take care.
Bye.